Hello and welcome to today's webinar on security and data protection for public clouds. Here with you today is myself, Vera de Chauvigny. I'm the Product Marketing Manager, and with me here in the room is François Vinel, our Technical Account Manager. Here is the agenda for today's webinar. We'll start by going through different cloud insights, looking into the recent trends, some opportunities that you encounter by going into the different cloud versions, the risks associated with cloud and especially public cloud, and then we will present to you the Rohde & Schwarz recent product, Trusted Gate. We'll go through the architecture, solutions and benefits, and we'll have a short Q&A session at the end. So please do leave your questions in the question box as we go through the webinar. So let's go straight into the cloud insights. Here you've got a Gartner analysis that was done on cloud shift proportion by category. You have different categories starting from systems infrastructure, software, application software, and business process outsourcing. One thing for sure is we have a clear trend to cloud adoption, and the highest adoption today is within the application software sector. So the cloud collaboration market size is estimated to grow significantly in the next 4 years, and the Gartner estimator will reach 28% by 2020. So as mentioned, application software is clearly the largest portion, and this is mainly due to the adoption of CRM tools. In the coming years, we're expecting to see more content services and collaboration services, which will further drive this category towards the cloud. Cloud adoption did not only transform our systems, software and operations, but it's also creating new dynamics for human interactions. This is especially true in the workplace. Cloud adoption was always used for private use, applications such as Facebook, etc. But this is gaining more support within and mindshare within the professional environment as well. So cloud computing sets up a sort of virtual office, which gives you then flexibility to connect to your business anywhere, anytime, empowering businesses to work within these new practices. So here are some of the trends that we're seeing. So businesses are going mobile. Cloud computing allows mobile access to corporate data via smartphones and devices. So now, considering the near 3 billion smartphones in use today, this is a great way to ensure that employees, partners and customers stay connected. The pressure to go mobile is also coming from the fact that the millennials, which now account for about 25% of the population, are beginning to join the workforce. They, as customers, are so used to using mobile devices that they expect the same usability in the workplace, and they expect to have that sort of access to their accounts at the touch of their fingertips at all times, whether it's personal or professional use. We see organizations going global. So most companies are now looking to expand into global presence, to grow the market share by gaining new markets outside of the domestic market. So they need the ability to onboard a global customer very quickly and to be able to do so efficiently. We see more flexible workforce. This capacity to scale your workforce is mainly driven by temporary part-time workers, freelancers, contractors. So you also need to have a very easy and cost-effective onboarding process. This is also supported by the next trend, which is the adoption of bring your own device trend in the workplace. So now IT policies tend to accept and sometimes even encourage employees to use their personal mobile devices and laptops to access enterprise data and systems. So this growing adoption of cloud technology by enterprises business allows employees to store, edit, access data from any compatible device, including their own. So cloud clearly allows to foster business agility. So as Mark Benioff said, the CEO of Salesforce, he says, if someone asks me what cloud computing is, I try not to get bogged down with definitions. I just tell them that, simply put, cloud computing is a better way to run your business. So this is indeed true. Cloud computing offers more flexibility to your employees in the work practices, as we mentioned earlier. It increases productivity, improvement in time to market, increase in companies' growth and business efficiency. It provides IT cost savings. Most cloud computing services are pay-as-you-go, so you don't have the heavy investment, you don't have the delays, and also if you're not using any part of the service, you're not paying for it. It provides you with scalability and allows companies to efficiently and quickly scale up and down their IT departments according to the business demand. And most of all, it gives you access to automatic updates. While previously you would have to rely on your IT departments to perform manual updates, this is done automatically in the cloud. So cloud computing has been around for approximately 2 decades, and despite the very promising business benefits, the ones that we've just mentioned, efficiencies, cost benefits, and competitive advantages, it still holds over the old way of business, as many companies still continue to operate the old way. However, there's one major driver which is likely to convert all in the time to come, and that is collaboration. Cloud computing takes collaboration and makes it seamless and share information easily across the cloud. They create interest and engagement, and collaboration is possible cloud computing solution, but it will never be as easy nor as effective. So in the long run, collaboration efficiency is the reason that cloud adoption will be pursued by businesses of all sizes and all industries. So, well, okay, this is all very well, but what about security? As you can see here, we go from the traditional method of storing your data on servers on premises to moving to private cloud and then potentially public cloud, or a mixture of the public and private, which then would be a hybrid cloud. So how does security fit into this, especially concerning public cloud? When an organization chooses to store data or host applications on the public cloud, it by default loses the ability to have physical access to the servers. And as a result, potentially sensitive corporate information is no longer under their control and therefore is at risk. So what can be done? And especially in the view of the recent GDPR regulation from the European Union, which requires special attention to personal and sensitive data. So many companies are indeed apprehensive about this, these reasons and many more. They're worried about data loss, industrial espionage. According to this study recently done by CXP Group, it says that data breaches are the main threat related to the cloud. The nationality and location of the cloud provider are crucial and more relevant in the decision-making process than ever before. And of all cloud options, the public cloud is perceived as the main source of vulnerability. And furthermore, regulations, including the Cloud Act, are also increasingly becoming a priority for businesses and security leaders. Cloud Act means that the US law now demands that data or emails can be handed over to a US company regardless where in the world the data is stored. This has obviously serious implications for any European organization using public cloud services. In fact, the US Cloud Act has the potential to create conflict with the general data protection regulation of the EU, and it still remains to be seen how these two regulations will be enforced if ever there is a conflict of interest. So while business leaders no longer need convincing that they ought to embrace cloud computing, they need to adopt a new security approach. So we all know that the fortress concept of IT and cybersecurity is crumbling. The company's perimeters are widening or even vanishing altogether. So putting new and exciting IT capabilities within reach is great, but companies are losing control over the systems and data. The distribution of processes is much higher and more global. And then there's also the human factor, which is making business vulnerabilities come from within. This is actually demonstrated, for example, by a recent WannaCry ransomware epidemic, where human factor played a major role in making businesses worldwide vulnerable. So because cloud architecture simply allows to propagate vulnerability much faster than in the old-fashioned fortress environment. So here are some of the risks summarized for you. The cloud clearly brings us a myriad of new security challenges, and they go from compliance, some of these were mentioned earlier, business continuity risks, cybersecurity, and then going more deeply, data security issues such as insider abuse of privilege, loss of cryptic key, data interception, ineffective EAM, or incomplete data deletion. Like with any risk management process, the risks must be assessed, classified, and a mitigation plan needs to be put in place. We all know that ensuring full data security is an ongoing, ever-evolving process. It is well known that the proven method is, or the one that delivers the best results. We know that there's no such thing as 100% secure, but we must align people, processes, and technology. And the best way to do it is by having the most robust and easy to use technology component, which would then be which will give less effort to enable people and processes. In fact, our ability to effectively protect data has a direct impact on the trust our partners and customers have in our ability to deliver and provide appropriate precautions to protect PII. So PII is personally identifiable information. So here you have another study done by Frost and Sullivan Group, which expresses the digital index for different countries. And as you can see, the level is quite low and significantly, in fact, lower in Europe than the rest of the world, so the Americas or Asia Pac. So it is interesting that in this digital age, the European Union is even taking specific measures to uphold individual privacy as a basic human right. And this is expressed by our General Data Protection Regulation. And so obviously we all know when misfortune happens, such as a data breach, a company loses the customer's digital trust. And this leads to tangible business impact, which is negative on the company. This has an impact on consumer trust and on the bottom line, so the financial results. The degree to which companies have experienced a strong negative impact is influenced by the industry in which they operate. Here on the graph, you see that healthcare is heading the stack and is the most likely to report strong negative impact as a result of a data breach. This is not surprising because obviously they operate with PII data. However, what is probably more surprising is to see the financial services having quite a low index. This is probably because they have high immunity to the negative impact of data breaches because of their swift reaction to incidents, and they have more security awareness campaigns, they have more robust security protection in place, and so they're more mature in that area, have more mature security posture. So while exploiting the powers of the cloud, do remember that data still remains your responsibility, and unlike all the other factors that can be potentially outsourced, whether it's PaaS, IaaS, SaaS, data is still your responsibility and cannot be outsourced, and it's also your most important asset. So you really need to get serious about data protection as one of the pillars of your security posture. So think of the following: protecting your digital sovereignty. Who will own the encryption key? Is the company subject to Cloud Act, as mentioned before? What about the sustainability and scalability of the solution? Is the security solution able to keep pace with the level of services and innovation available from the cloud provider? Are you able to guarantee performance while putting extra security? We know that the payoff is often performance. So how do the two combine together? And what about the total cost? So you obviously have the upfront cost, but what about the total cost of ownership? Does the security product have a return on investment clearly identified, and does it have any unpredictable cost hidden within? So now I will hand over to my colleague, Francois, who will present to you our newest solution, Trusted Gate.
Thank you, Vera. So clearly, this is a lot of challenges. So now let's have a closer look on how we can address them through our Trusted Gate solution. So first of all, when it comes to data, basically you can find two kinds of two states of data. So you will find data in motion and data at rest. So I would just like to remind everyone the differences between the two kinds. So data in motion is data that will flow through any kind of network. So for example, it can flow through the internet, of course. It can flow through maybe MPLS networks and so forth. At the opposite, we have data at rest, which are basically inactive data that will be stored on a physical format in any digital form. So of course, securing both of them is very important. I would even say that this is crucial. So a few people consider, by the way, that the data at rest can have more value than data in motion. Since ages now, you can use several and very various technologies to secure both data in motion and at rest. So for example, of course, you can use VPNs between several sites. For example, if you have applications, web applications, you can of course use web application firewalls. You can use encryption with SSL or TLS. For everything going through mail, you can use encryption. So that's a lot of technologies. More on the data at rest, of course, you can use endpoint solutions, next-gen firewalls, and encryption as well. So we can see that a lot of technologies that are always evolving because, of course, the threats are evolving too. So Trusted Gate is basically a solution where we will be focusing on data-centric security. So we will rely on a multi-layer security, and we will see exactly how it works just after. We will be able to automatically process classified documents to protect them from everything like personal information, to make sure that you have no exfiltration of data, for example, and it can be used, of course, for critical data as well. So this solution will be able to be used in several protection modes. So here you have a few examples. It can be a proxy mode, for example, a reverse proxy mode, or it can work through an API. So this solution is basically focused on three different concepts. The first one is quite an interesting one and an innovative one. So we will basically use the virtualization concept. I will get back to this just after. Then we will also use the encryption, of course. When it comes to securing data, it's very important to use encryption. And finally, we will use fragmentation as well. So now let's have a look on how does it work exactly from an architecture perspective. So let's say you have in your company, you want to upload a specific file, which is a confidential one, in, for example, SharePoint in Office 365. So basically on the left, you can see that you have your original documents. So hopefully this document will be classified by any solution. So it can be done through metadata, for example, and then you will upload this document in the SharePoint environment. When you will do this, our solution will automatically separate the document between two parts. So you have the one at the top, which will be basically a virtual file. So as you can see, this document will have no content, but only metadata. So for example, we can think about maybe a paper sheet. So it would be like separating the sheet itself and the handwritten content. So this virtual document will be uploaded within SharePoint, for example. And why we are doing this? Because basically the main idea of this concept is to be able to continue to use the specific workflows of SharePoint, for example. So in the background below, you can see that the original content will be encrypted, and then it will be fragmented in several chunks, and you will be able to distribute these chunks everywhere you want. So this is why we are talking about software-defined storage. So basically you can, for example, choose to store a few chunks on-prem in your own data center, for example. If you can also, of course, use buckets from Amazon, for example, S3 buckets. You can use Azure blob storing systems. And basically, when you will be separating all these chunks, this will provide security because you will be able to make sure that if, for example, a cloud is compromised, you will not be able to reconstruct the original document. So let's have a closer look to these several features. So regarding the dynamic encryption and fragmentation, the solution is relying on strong encryption mechanisms, and this will provide real security against, of course, both internal and external attacks. So you can use several algorithms. Of course, when it comes to encryption, one main challenge is to be transparent for the users. So of course, the encryption will be applied automatically when the uploading process is done by the users, and this will be totally transparent. So as we saw before, the original files encrypted can be distributed in several storage spaces according to your configuration. Of course, when it comes to encryption, a very important point is related to the security encryption, the encryption keys. So with this solution, the encryption keys will stay at the customer site everywhere, and you will, of course, have the responsibility to secure these keys. So one very good example is, for example, the projections about quantum computers. So in a few years, quantum computers will be more evolved. And of course, they will be capable of breaking the current crypto algorithm. So as you understood, this solution has a double layer security because you have the encryption itself, and then you have, of course, the fragmentation parts. Regarding the virtualization, as I told before, we will provide transparent access for authorized users. So of course, you can use your own identity and access management solution, and this will keep the business workflow unchanged. So you will be able, for example, to share your documents, to process them in SharePoint or other solutions in a transparent way. So this virtual document is containing only metadata and no content, as we saw before. And of course, we will provide also specific features to make the solution transparent. For example, you have the full text search capability, and you will be able from SharePoint, for example, to find for information in the documents themselves. So as you understood, this solution is a multiple use solution. So we have a main concept that can be used for several use cases. So here you can find the portfolio, the current portfolio. You have Trusted Gate for Office 365. You have also a solution for SharePoint. You have Secure Data Room, which is a specific solution basically used when you need to exchange information with partners, for example. You have also the Data Diode solution, very interesting for companies with high requirements from a security perspectives. When you have several levels of classifications, you can use this solution. Of course, we see today a lot of customers using the mail part of Office 365. So you can use also the DLP solution that will allow you to use the solution with email. And finally, you have also the mobile access, which is quite interesting. That would provide read-only access to specific confidential documents. So for example, imagine you have your CEO, which is connected in an airport, and he needs urgently to get access to the last Excel sheet from the last quarter, for example. You will be able to access these documents through the mobile access solution in a secure way. So this is very interesting as well. So now we can switch to a few use cases. So this is the first one where you have a company distributed in several countries. So here we have, for example, France and Germany, and you will make the solution able to use the workflow within SharePoint or Office 365 worldwide. So any countries will be able to use the workflows. But let's say you have some prohibited countries that do not need to access to specific files, to the content of the files. You will be able to create policies and give access to the documents only for authorized countries. So in our example, for example, we have France and Germany. So this is one specific use case which is very interesting with several countries when we are dealing with legal restrictions. Another one is using the secure data room solution. So as seen before, this will be interesting whether you want to exchange information with external partners. So let's say you have a trusted gate used on your own infrastructure, and you need to provide documents, provide access to confidential documents to external partners. You can do it through this solution. So this is a good use case as well. I talked about SharePoint. So let's say, imagine you are using SharePoint, whether it is SharePoint online or on-premise. You can use, for example, an add-in mode. So here you can see that we have a basic SharePoint interface, and you can see that it's almost the same as usual, except the fact that at the top on the right, you can see in red that we have what we call a trusted mode. So you can enable this mode or disable it according to your needs. So you will see in this window that the several files, the name itself is encrypted. So let's say, for example, I click on the trusted mode button in order to enable it. Then I can log in, and then I'm logged. You can see at the top that the color is not the same. Now the banner is green, and we can see that all documents are now unencrypted in their names. Of course, we have also in the banner specific buttons. So you can see that we have, for example, secure upload, secure download as well, secure file name search, and so forth. Of course, you can, from the SharePoint, configure this banner, and you can make sure that you will display only the red and Schwarz button or not according to your needs. So now let's click on one document. So you can see the tender plan provision, for example, and let's say I want to download it. So I will click on secure download button, and then I will be able to download the file locally. And Trusted Gate will do all the job, and then I will have my document unencrypted locally. Another use case which is interesting as well is more on, I would say, a TCO perspective. So let's say, for example, you are a big company working worldwide, you have a headquarters, and then you have several subsidiaries. But all these subsidiaries are located in regulated countries. So, of course, the original data needs to stay on each country. So with our solution, you will be able to use a central SharePoint that you can find at the top of the diagram, which is basically located in your existing data center, in this case. You will be able to provide both your several countries. So we have country A and country B, for example. Both of them will be able to collaborate on your SharePoint, which is central. But with the solution, you will make sure that every data never leaves each country. So just a few key functions at a glance. We saw a few ones. So you can see that we have basically general functions and more like high security features. So on general functions, we saw earlier the seamless integration into applications like Microsoft Office 365 or SharePoint. Of course, we have also data loss prevention capacities, audit-proof lifetime tracking of file, a lot of features, and GDPR compliance as seen earlier. More like high security features, we have, of course, this concept related to classification, streaming encryption, virtualization, and fragmentation. You can, of course, use your own crypto provider and choose the algorithm, whether you want to use elliptical curves, RSA, you can just configure this. So now I will hand over to Vera.
So just to conclude, Trusted Gates provides very high security while maintaining full performance and flexibility. And thanks to our new virtualization process, you only have the virtual copies of the files, which are kept in the cloud. So without any confidential content, and therefore internal corporate data remains protected, and also it prevents any internal or external attacks. So it allows companies to take advantage of collaboration tools in any cloud, including public cloud, in compliance with data protection requirements, and gives you easy management and usability. So here it is for our Trusted Gate product, and we're very pleased to be able to present it to you today. And now I would like to open the Q&A session. Are there any questions? Okay. So the first question, what exactly changes for the end user? As you've seen on the presentation done by Francois, you have a few extra buttons to enable and disable encryption. So it's a very easy to implement process, and also very easy to use, and makes it completely seamless for the end user. Another question, I'll give it over to Francois. Can you estimate how long it would take to implement a Trusted Gate solution for a company with very heavy usage of SharePoint?
Yes, of course. Basically, it will be, generally speaking, it will be within 1 day. So we will be able to provide POC, proof of concepts, of course, and we will need to integrate the solution into the environment of the customer. So basically, we are dealing with classical tasks like, of course, opening firewalls, ports, like providing SSL certificates and so forth, but there is no, it will be within 1 day.
Okay, and we have another question. Can the user configure the fragment size and where to store them?
Yes, of course we can. So this is a very interesting point of the solution. You will be able to configure the size of the chunks, and of course you can use, you can configure the locations as well. So you can configure it on-prem, in specific storage environments, according to your needs.
Thank you, Francois.
No problem.
So just to reiterate, by configuring the storage, the customer can actually configure it so that the original data never leaves the country of origin, it never leaves the local data center, and therefore he has full control of it. It's only the metadata that's being used for collaborative purposes in the cloud. So on this, we will conclude our presentation. We
have a last question. The question is, can we enable encryption by default? Yes, we can, of course. We can in several ways, and the easiest way will be to use the reverse proxy approach. When you use this, the encryption will be done by default in any cases.
Thank you, Francois. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for your great questions, and we hope to see you again during our next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.